First article that I'm going to talk about has to do with 10 U.S. college expenses besides tuition. This was a very recent article. It came out August 2nd, and it's by U.S. News and World Report. And some of it's not necessarily applicable to everybody here, but a lot of it is. So it talks about Visa cards, wire transfers, travel home, and also dorm room gear and dorm room equipment. A lot of the other things like travel from out of the country and things like that, and renting different housing, you're not going to have to worry about rentals and housing and things like that until next year at the least. I mean, a lot of times there's dorming up through all 4 years. Sometimes it's only for the first 2 years, but certainly it's always first year. They want you to come on campus that's what a traditional student really means. So a lot of those costs associated with that are really like how you fill in your dorm space. So hopefully at this point, you've spoken to people that you're going to be living with. You have gotten a list of things together. You're not going to bring 5 TVs for the one little living room space that you have or for your dorm room. And so now we want to look at all the other outside costs. So one of the things that this article talks about is like the day-to-day stuff that you don't think about, like the deodorant, the soap, the shampoo, like, you know, the stuff that you get now, like for free because you live at home, very likely. You're not going to have that for free. So it's actually a really good article that deals with how to get a good checklist involving this. So I really encourage you to read all of those. And it kind of brings me to the second article that I thought was also really important, and that is 10 facts to know about the federal work-study program. And this is also U.S. News World Report. It talks about the benefits of doing a work-study. And again, I encourage you to read the article. It talks about how the federal government spent nearly $1 billion on work-study between 2016 and 2017. And the most recent data shows that federal funds usually subsidize up to 75% of students' wages, and then the school pays for the rest of that. So there are instances in which the federal government can pay up to 90%. So this just goes into a lot of little details about work study. It is a part of your financial aid package. And this is one of the things that I did not know when I went to college. You have a financial aid package. So your school looked at your FAFSA, they looked at all of your funds, they looked at what you needed, they looked at what you had, and then they said you qualify for X amount of dollars in financial aid. You will see an itemized list on all of your financial aid. And some of the things on that list are going to involve work study, very likely. So a lot of times that's one of the things that will happen is that they will say, you know, did you or did you not sign up for work study? Sometimes it's automatic, sometimes it's not. It's not an automatic amount of money that you get. It is a limit. So let's say that your financial aid packages include $6,000 of work study. That's all you can make in your work study. So if you worked extra hours, 2 different jobs on campus, if you had a really high paying work study, you still can only get $6,000. So it's something that you really need to keep in mind and keep budgeting for, because if you don't do it, you don't get the money. So if you had a $15,000 package, but 6 of it was work study, you have to work for 6 of that 15, and 9 is going towards, say, tuition or housing or a meal plan. So that 6 is what they expect you to have for spending money throughout the year. So that is actually really important to look at. Please take some time today. Look with your parents, find out about work study, find out if it's in there or not. If it's not in there, that's even better, because then you have the opportunity to put a request in for work study. And if they award you that, and then you can work during using the work study program, because like that article alludes to, it is either 75 to 90% funded by the federal government. So these are not actually dollars that the university just gets to have. It's not like a pool of money that the college just gets and then they give it out to people. It's dollar for hour. It's dollar for dollar. So the government gives them the money as they utilize it, and that's why there's a cap on it, because if it was just unlimited money, people would be working 40 hours a week in their work study. And it's already $1 billion that the government spent in 2016 to 2017. I can't imagine it going higher than that. So something to keep in mind. I just wanted to go over that this week in our article search as we look at things that are relevant to all of you. Work studies can be 10 hours a week. A lot of times they're between 10 and 15 hours a week, and they're limited. You know, and they can be things like a resident assistant, an RA. So in some form of student life or a resident's life. They can be working in the student activities office. It could be cleaning toilets in the bathrooms in the dorm building. So it's limited, and there are not that as many of these jobs as there are students. So it would behoove you to look into it as soon as possible and make sure that you get a job that suits your skill set and suits your schedule. So if you are going to be very busy, if you're very structured, if you have, like, say, a music program, or let's say that you're in an engineering program or a teaching program or a nursing program, your options are actually extremely limited in what you can do because your schedule is so built in. It's baked in when you're going to have time off. So you might need to do something that's more flexible in its hours, something like a cleaning job or something like working for the writing center, something like that. If you are more like free flowing, the only schedule you need to worry about is your class schedule. So if you work at, like, the fast food place on campus and that's part of your work study, it's really just going to work around your hours because obviously the college puts class time ahead of your job. So you should be happy about that, though, because this is the last place that's going to do that. So keep that in mind too. That is actually really helpful. Being awarded work study doesn't guarantee a position. That's kind of a little bit about what I just spoke about. You're not just guaranteed this money, and you're not even guaranteed a job. So you can be fired. It's not just you get to keep the job because you were awarded this. You do have to work. So, there's a resume piece. If you have not done resume work with me yet, you can schedule that in a one-to-one. That's fine. I'm more than happy to do it. I do it all the time. There are a number of ways to get that done. You can look at last week's article that I posted on resumes and how they're effective or ineffective based on experience. So that might help you to change your resume. And there's a number of things you can do, but you do have to interview and qualify for some of these positions. And some of them you can't get until you're a sophomore anyway. So just keep a lookout for that. And it would even make sense to call the college and see where that process takes place. So that's important. Funds are not applied to your tuition bill. That's just basically saying that you are not just going to get this money tacked on at the end. It's a paycheck. You get a cut of that money, and it's taxable and all these other things. So that's important to know. Hourly pay is at least minimum wage. That's great or not great depending on where you are. I had a $10 an hour work study at a time when the minimum wage in Pennsylvania was $5.75. So that was an extraordinarily high wage for a work study. But there are states now that have extraordinarily high wages for minimum wage. So it might be fine for that. But remember, there is that limit. And that's why, it's great that you're getting $11 or $12 an hour for your work study. But if you only have $3,000 a semester that you could possibly make, that's not a lot of hours. So you really need to be aware of that, be cognizant of that. It won't affect your financial aid ability if you get work study. That's not going to hurt you because it's understood that this is a part of financial aid anyway. But you do get taxed on it. So the government gets some of that money back. It's one of the funny ironies that I think about money that you're getting from the federal government. It's now being taxed and sent back to the federal government. So they'll give 75% of that money, and then they'll take 40% of the 100%. So really, they're not giving away that $1 billion, and that's how it keeps it afloat. So, okay, that was important, and it's information that you need to know. Does anybody have any questions on that before we move on to the next section of being prepared? Okay, here's one. Do you have to sign up for a resident assistant job? No. So the resident assistant is something that you cannot be as a freshman. Freshmen can be in student life the next year. So there's a lot of reasons for that. But and I can even have somebody come on and talk a little bit about resident life, and I probably will do that sometime in the winter, because it's a fantastic opportunity if you can get it. So if it's something that you can do, I very much encourage you to look into it. A lot of times you get to live for free on campus, so your student housing is paid for. I believe Gettysburg is a great example of that, where you have a $15,000 to $25,000 bill for your living situation on campus just erased. It's better than financial aid to be in resident life. In a situation where the college gives you that kind of a break, there are often other potentials to make money doing another student life job. So doing some other student assistant work. that would count towards your financial aid, and then you would be eligible for like an additional $2,500 or $3,000 that you could get in your pocket. Because obviously, you know, it's important to have money, and you need to buy books, you need to do a lot of other things, but it's understood that you're getting quite a deal if you're doing resident life and you get to live for free. The college that I went to gave you a straight up salary, and they broke down your financial aid package, and then they just cut it into biweekly checks, and then you just got those automatically throughout the year because that was the deal. So that wasn't such a fantastic deal. That was more a matter of convenience, that you got other perks, like you got to have your own dorm room, you got to have preferential parking in your dorm, and it was a bit of a prestige position as well, and leadership. It's great for a resume. So, and it was fun. It's fun to do. So I probably will have somebody come and talk to you guys about that. And that will be sometime in either November or beginning of December, before finals for sure, because they start looking at people to fill in those resident assistant roles like right away, but they really see how people take shape and how they carry themselves and their interest level and not getting in trouble and things like that. They evaluate that throughout the year, and then they invite people usually about halfway through the year to come to train and do an orientation for potentially being an RA. And that's a whole selection process. So, you know, it does make sense for me to talk a little bit about this now. But again, I do think that it's going to make a lot more sense to you when you are living on campus. So the only thing I will say before you get started is your reputation is known, and it's important to getting into a resident assistant position. So don't think that because you didn't officially get in trouble that the resident directors and the people who would be hiring you haven't asked people to get private information about your behavior. So you do need to keep your nose clean. And there's a lot of other reasons why that makes a lot of sense as a freshman anyway, that we will continue to go over as we discuss this year. But that's a really good reason. They really want to see people who are going to be the moral authorities and leaders in your class, because in order for you to enforce rules, you have to follow them. I mean, you're under higher levels of scrutiny. So if you go in just with that idea that I know I'm going to be held to a higher standard, hold yourself to that. You'll open yourself up for some great potential opportunities. So please keep that in mind. It's a lot of fun, I think, to get to college and meet people and have a great time. But just be aware that you are being watched by 1,000 some people who have these devices that have cameras and microphones. So, you know, be aware. Anything that you say and do can and will be used against you, at the very least in the social media law. But it will also affect your ability to get certain work studies. So please think about work study programs. There are a number of reasons why the article goes into that they help and they're beneficial, but based on some of what we talked about last time and then a little bit about what we're talking about this time, you need money. And working on campus just makes sense if you're living on campus. It is so much harder to find a job off campus that will accommodate your hours, pay you well, consistently give you that work, and then have you be able to just walk back and forth to class and work. That's very hard to find. Work is quite disruptive for the traditional student, especially as a freshman. So really the way I see it is you only have a couple of options. You could either, number one, you could run into working at a work study, having money in your pocket, not running around off campus, and getting as little disruption as possible for yourself while still having money to do what you want to do. Or number two, you could choose not to work your freshman year. A lot of people choose this. It might be the right decision for you. I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to you one-to-one, but you need to make that call because it's a pretty big cost to not do a work study. They're not that hard. A lot of them require minimal skill sets. Like I said, come on, it's a lot of times you're cleaning a bathroom. That's not that hard. It's not my favorite, but it's not that hard. So if you choose to not work, understand that that's a bigger burden on your parents. And it's just basically it's a bigger burden on you because you have to ask for money now. So if you're not doing that, if you're just working at a work study, there's a lot of times you don't have to ask for anything. The money's in your hands. It's within your power to go and grab something from Target. You can go to Chipotle today and go and get that, bowl that you want to get. You can do that because you've earned some money and you won't even really think about it. Because if you break down your schedule, which most of you should have your schedule by now, I want to talk a little bit about schedules. It's really got a lot of gaps, right? Freshmen, especially, you all have very limited resources when it comes to being able to have like a streamlined schedule. So your 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11, it's not like that. You will get it like that. And there are actually ways that you can use Registrar to push yourself into a better schedule. But that being said, there's a whole lot of downtime. If you could get a 2-hour-a-day job 5 days a week that was like from 10 to noon, and it perfectly fills in that gap between your morning class and your afternoon classes, why would you not do that? What else are you going to do at that time? Not a lot. I mean, just to be honest, nobody really is that productive with just a short period of time in between classes. It's just not done. You might be able to go to the gym, but you might not have enough time. You might be like, I don't really want to go to the gym because, it's cold and it's snowing. And even though it's on campus, I just don't feel like going. But you'll go to work because you have to, and you'll make money. And that's a good thing. There's a lot of perks as well for doing a work study. A lot of times it's in the food services, and that means there's sometimes opportunities for you to get food. And that doesn't seem like a big deal right now, but you're also not 2 months into college eating the same things at the dining hall every day and week after week. So that's a pretty good consideration. If you think that you're like working in one of the fast food places on campus, or you're doing something in food industry, that's a good thing. And it can really help you to give your palate a break from eating the same things over and over again. You get connected to different people on campus, different friend groups. You can work with the people that you obviously don't necessarily have classes with. You get to meet upperclassmen when you're doing a work study program. There's the opportunity to make friends in higher grades and to be able to meet and have that connection with them very early on, because you're forced into the same place, can actually really benefit you socially. So I know I'm hard selling work studies, but that's on purpose. It really is beneficial. And when your spring term comes up and you're like, well, I got to buy all these books, you're going to be very happy that you did this.